You're watching The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the God. We are The Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
Again, my brother.
He's always up here. He's part of The Breakfast Club.
Absolutely.
Michael Eric Dyson.
Yes, sir. It's so good to be back here with y'all.
That's your chair now.
Hey, I feel it. I'm at home.
Now, last time you was here, you was releasing the book, Tears We Cannot Stop.
Yes, sir.
The book released. It was number 8 on the New York Times bestsellers list. Drop on the clues bombs for that.
Nice.
I was reading that book when I was getting my hair done, and everybody in the beauty shop was like, "Excuse me, can I see that book that you're reading? What is that about?" So
oh, nice. I'm glad.
Even the title alone gets a lot of attention.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. No, it's been incredible, man. I've been getting, of course, I get the white hate mail, but I got a lot of white love based on that. And a lot of white people saying, this is ironic. They said, you're actually speaking for us. This is the kind of stuff we wanted to say to people we love, but we couldn't say it in a certain way. So they said, we're just giving your book to them. I said, man, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, because I didn't feel like there's nothing in your book that is any type of hatred towards white people.
Not at all.
If anything, you're asking white America to use its privilege to combat the prejudice that we're seeing.
That's beautifully put, man. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to ask them to peek beneath the veil, so to speak, right? The Wizard of Oz ain't who you think he is. So I'm asking white people to see whiteness as that artificial construction and get behind the curtain and then take off the burden of that whiteness, because that whiteness hurts white people as much, ironically enough, as it hurts black, brown, red, and yellow people too.
Now, we had a discussion about Adele and Beyonce up here.
Man.
I know you were upset Beyonce lost Album of the Year because you dedicated your book to her.
You know I am. and the thing is, look, I love Adele. When I went to one of Beyonce's concerts, the one in Philadelphia, because I went to 3 of them on this tour. I got to hit multiple Beyonce concerts. And, I was up there with Adele's people. So I love Adele. I love what she represents. This is bigger than the individuals, because it's clear that Beyonce and Adele have a special, significant, beautiful, and affectionate relationship, and especially in public, 2 superstar women loving each other has a political consequence. You saw it some when you saw, say, Nicki Minaj and Taylor Swift, but it always gets complicated by the issue of race. Remember when Taylor thought, Nicki was signifying on her about skinny women and you can't get recognized, and then Taylor went off on her, and then she had to put her in check. It's always that tension. But with Adele and Beyonce, it's been a rather remarkable kind of romantic, in the best sense of that word, relationship between the two. Having said that, it was thievery, pure and simple. And what it is, to me, in the era of Trump, it's the emergence of black genius up against white mediocrity. I'm not talking about Adele now. I'm talking about Donald Trump. Adele is a significant and great craftswoman. She's a songstress of the first order. You probably wouldn't have seen Beyonce start a song and then stop it, because of her yen for perfection is so deep. Her preparation is so thorough. Her respect for her craft is so incredible that when Steve Stout came to my Jay-Z class at Georgetown, he said the 2 hardest working people I've ever met in my life, Kobe Bryant, Beyonce. So we know her level of preparation is legendary and probably would have prevented something like that from occurring. But beyond that, as great as Adele is, she is not Beyonce. If we can't have a black woman who is the greatest entertainer in the world today, and not just on stage, though that is, the performative element is quite extraordinary, I'm talking about what she did with her music. You release an album like Lemonade, the same way you did the previous album, Beyonce, a visual album. It comes with the batteries included. You've got every video, right, thought out. You've got not only that, the thematic consistency of that album there. Then you've got what she's doing with her voice. People don't recognize Beyonce's genius in terms of fusing singing and rapping. I mean, what she's done on those last 2 albums, she could spit with the best of them. She could spit with her husband. And we know what a remarkable genius he is. So I'm saying she doesn't get recognition for the craft of what she does. She doesn't get recognition as a woman or a black woman for the extraordinary time and effort she puts into what she does. It's like black athletes. Oh, you must be born that way. LeBron, you must have those skills. Kobe, you got those skills. Serena Williams, you got those skills. No, that's hard work and genius, which is a devastating consequence. So for me, when I see Beyonce being denied, I'm asking, where is Kanye West when you need him?
Exactly.
Where is Kanye to go up on stage and say, slow down, hold up? We know that as good as Adele is, she did not deserve the double, if you will, double that she got, winning the big 3 awards twice, the only figure ever to do it in an era, much less in a year, when Beyonce has unleashed her genius on the world. And not only did Beyonce do it sonically and thematically, she did it in terms of politics. She put on blast those forces of white supremacy and other oblivion to black culture that would try to hurt us, and she represented in such a powerful way for Black Lives Matter insistence that our lives are significant and should be held in high regard. She did all of that a couple of days ago while she's pregnant, leaning back in the chair, announcing the birth of her twins to come, and totally dominating the rhetorical, the majesty of the entertaining, and the incredible art of what it means to make an album and to perform. So at that level, black genius will always be punished by white mediocrity. It will always be punished by, in this case, excellence in white culture has to, in one sense, go up against the extraordinary genius of black culture. Think about it, for instance, I love him too. When my man Kendrick Lamar should have won the album, who ended up winning?
Macklemore.
Now, Macklemore is a great artist. Macklemore is a conscientious great artist. Macklemore is a conscientious white great artist who understands what's at stake. But what did he say? I know Kendrick Lamar deserved that. What did Adele say? I know that I can't accept this, though she took the award with her. She did not give that to Beyonce. She knew that she didn't deserve that. The same way when Kanye went up on that stage, and I happened to be there that night. I was there that night at the Video Music Awards when Kanye West went up on stage. Yeah, was he drunk? Maybe so. But what was his point? Was it rude? Of course. But what was his point? It was so righteous. His point was, I am tired of standing by seeing black genius unrewarded when we know the superior artist has been denied. I bet you Chuck Berry was at home going, where was Kanye when I needed him? When they were giving my awards to Pat Boone. I bet you Little Richard was at home saying, where were you when they were giving my awards to Elvis Presley? Elvis Presley, undeniable genius himself, but not the originator of rock and roll and the ability to write the same way Chuck Berry was. And now Beyonce robbed in a serious way. And if the most recognizable black woman, arguably on the globe, the most talented, the most ingenious, the most creative, can't get her due, this is symbolic of something bigger than an individual artist being snubbed. This is about the politics of race. This is about the politics of race and gender. And this is about the politics of blackness in an era of vast, unreachable white mediocrity that Donald Trump represents.
Yeah, what was the article you read this morning, Yee, when it's saying that they was asking the question of the Grammys racist?
Oh, yeah. I was reading a tweet that Solange put out.
Solange actually tweeted.
Got to tell you, I love Solange.
Yeah, and they were talking about the numbers of how many years that black people have actually won the Album of the Year award. How many times they've won over the past, I think it's only
been twice. I think Lauryn Hill in like 98, 99, and Herbie Hancock, I believe.
Oh, Herbie, right, okay.
And I think Outkast won for Album of the Year once.
Did they? Yeah. Well, the fact that you can name them proves the point.
Right,
yeah.
It wasn't a lot.
That right. We've had Sam Cooke, we've had Donny Hathaway, we've had Stevie Wonder. Think about it. I mean, we've had Aretha Franklin. I mean, extraordinary ignorance of the very sources from which people pull. And a lot of enlightened liberal white people think, oh my God, do you have to make this about race? Couldn't it have been simply about the fact that Adele made a superior album? Has she made
did
one?
It, though.
Yeah.
25 was not better than Lemonade.
Not
it
in
just
anybody's calculation. Even in Adele's mind, she knew 25 wasn't better than Lemonade. And what Lemonade did off the charts was equally as impressive as what it did on the charts. And what it did musically and sonically has been underappreciated. And again, Beyonce is a victim of her own genius because she makes it look so easy. But the extraordinary work that she puts into it and the uncritical deference to whiteness, the tipping of the hat and the genuflecting before the altar of whiteness has again spoiled the recognition of what we are as a people and especially as black genius that Beyonce represents.
Yeah, Solange tweeted out, there have only been 2 black winners in the last 20 years for Album of the Year. There have been over 200 black artists who have performed.
Right.
That's what she tweeted out. There's a couple of other incidents that happened recently, like Charles Oakley at first getting banned from the Garden. Now they're saying sometime in the near future he will be able to come out. But just even the way that they
I mean,
dragged him out.
The way, look, again, now we talk about putting in the work. When Charles Oakley stepped on that court, and that's my generation, I saw that brother play. When Charles Oakley stepped on that court, he brought every fiber of energy, of work ethic, of sweat ethic that God gave him to bear for those owners for whom he played and the teammates that he loved and adored and embraced. You know, from whether he was playing with Scottie and Michael Jordan in Chicago and then coming into New York and transforming the work culture, right? You talking about a blue collar, a hat in his hand and a pail in his hand, workman. Right. I mean, Charles Oakley was the ultimate enforcer, the ultimate muscle, and gave his all for the team. He's earned his right to be critical of Mr. Dolan. He's earned his right to be critical of other players who haven't stepped up to the plate. I mean, that's the nature, again, of black genius. When LeBron steps up, he's bringing the noise to everybody in the ruckus. Michael Jordan was no walk through the park. Kobe Bryant, these men of genius, or Serena Williams, this is no tea for the fever. This is an extraordinary demand. So why then toss my man out like that, treat him like a common thug, chump him, and I'm going to tell you what else gets revealed is that Phil Jackson, as great as he was at one point, may be revealing that, you know, heck, you and I could have coached the Chicago Bulls or the Los Angeles Lakers if we had Kobe Bryant and Shaq and if we had Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan. Now your genius is being challenged. It looks like Greg Popovich is a far more significant and serious coach, and Phil Jackson looks like a petulant child. He's an appropriate kind of GM for New York in the age of Trump because even though he doesn't ostensibly share his politics, what he does share is a kind of narcissistic self-engagement trying to cover it over with Zen spirituality when at the end of the day you end up being nothing more than a jerk. And at the end of the day, Phil Jackson's inability to even acknowledge Carmelo Anthony. Now, you gave Anthony the dough and you gave him the ability not to be traded. So at the end of the day, you acknowledge what he brought to the table, and now you want to just loud talk him. You want to make snide remarks and comments. I mean, again, the inability to grapple with and recognize the significant contribution of even a so-called complicated black people. Black people aren't allowed to be complicated. White folk get complicated. They're eccentric. They're geniuses. Black people do it. You're a thug. You have no ability to fit in with the others. No, I'm coloring outside the lines because my name is Picasso. So now they don't recognize our genius and then shunt us off as a pathological expression of things they want to throw away. And Charles Oakley got played the same way.
Now, I felt like Adele missed the moment. Like you know how we talk about how you can use your privilege to combat prejudice. Like when she said the whole thing about Beyonce's music makes my black friends feel like they can stand up for themselves. I felt like she should have said Beyonce's music makes me want to stand up for black people.
Come
and my
on.
Black friends.
There it is. That's a brilliant point because the ultimate act of white privilege is to share it as much as you can, to deconstruct it, to unmask it, and to say, you know what, I don't deserve it. So standing there, she might have said that. She might have said, we all know that as much as I love you and appreciate you for recognizing me and what I've been through, we all know that this black woman sitting before me is the greatest entertaining and, if you will, aesthetic and melodic and harmonic and musical presence on the globe right now. And we should all defer to her and recognize that. And if the award committee doesn't do it, I will. Here, Beyonce, let me give this to you. You are the woman who deserves it. No, she doesn't have that kind of grace or that kind of acknowledgement that her own privilege has to exist only at the expense of Beyonce. And this is what a lot of white folk don't understand. The white privilege you enjoy exists at the expense of somebody else being denied. At that level, it is a zero-sum game. White privilege exists only because white folk didn't have to compete with the best of their genre, right? Think about it. Babe Ruth didn't compete against the greatest ball players. He competed against the greatest white ball players, right? I mean, you're right. And when white folk got into Harvard before they started integrating it, you ain't competing against the smartest people. You competing against the smartest white people. God knows you weren't competing against the smartest Latino or Asian people. In fact, they got a basic, moratorium on the entry of certain Asians out in California, a quota, if you will, former or not, where they limit the number of Asian brothers and sisters who will get in school because it was killing the numbers of white folk. As long as white folk were getting in over black and brown people, wasn't no problem. I'm sorry, it's about a meritocracy. And merit determines the distribution of goods like employment or getting a seat in the school. But when the Asians started whipping that white ass, all of a sudden, it became a problem. The quota got enforced, formally or informally, and now white competition with others who can beat them is regulated. So my point is, from the very beginning, white folk have been treated to an extraordinary level of of privilege, and part of that privilege means I don't have to face the best and the brightest. Before black people could play basketball, it was Bob Cousy, it was George Mikan, it was all, and these are all great players. But you ain't Will Chamberlain, you ain't Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, you ain't Dr. J, you're not Michael Jordan, you're not Kobe Bryant, you're not LeBron James. So they competed, but they rigged the competition in their favor and got mad at black and brown and yellow and red people by saying, you people just want a handout. You want somebody to give something to you. You don't want to face the stiff competition against those who are better. No, sir. What you don't understand is that whiteness is built in with the ability to rig the competition in favor of the white guy. That's why Donald Trump's presidency is so apropos. And this is why a lot of white people don't want to recognize it's not simply about a crypto-fascist creep in America. It's not about the denial of democracy. It's all that, but it's also about the fact that a mediocre white boy is occupying the most powerful position in the world, and he is manifestly inferior and incapable of manning up or intellectualing up to be able to fit the office for which he has been elected.
But my whole thing with that is what about if she really didn't feel that way? Right. What about if she felt that, yeah, you made my black friend stand up and she didn't get that necessary feeling? Right. I feel like sometimes we look for acceptance of people that we necessarily don't need acceptance from.
That's true. I mean, but I thought that Charlamagne's point was she missed an opportunity to do so. But your point is equally right.
That way.
But if she
might not have felt that way.
Well, that even more reinforces our point about her white privilege, because at least if she's conscious of it and doesn't make the gesture to unmask that privilege, that's one thing. But she's conscious of it, because we know she's conscious because she's trying to fumble toward it makes my black friends better. She's trying. Yeah. She's trying to get in that arena. She's in the arena. She ain't in the section we sitting in. She ain't in the VIP, but she in the arena. She in the arena. Your point is, what about she ain't even in the arena? What about she doesn't feel that way? And I'm saying that's part and parcel. That's the usual response, right? If she's not, that's what white brothers and sisters usually possess. That is, no recognition at all. You talk to most white people about white privilege. What the hell are you talking about? Right? I get emails, hate emails from white people. What the hell are you talking about? I don't have any white privilege. I was poor. You got more privilege than me.
They'll say things like, go get a job.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And again, they don't even recognize, right, when they say, well, it's the white working class, we had to work. The white working class got protected too. How? It kept out black people from unions, pipe fitters, plumbers. The white working class rigged the competition for themselves. When you were taking a test for a policeman or a fireman, you were given the hookup from within. On 9/11, as tragic as that day was, why did most of the people who perished officially as firemen or policemen, why were they white? Because it reflected the deep lack of diversity and the hookup that white people have among certain unions, certain jobs and outfits. Just like you go to D.C., the parking people, you know they're going to be Ethiopian. Amasaganalo. That's what it's going to be, because they've been able to hone in on and horn in on that particular, if you will, industry and allow it to share it with others of their people who come over here. So I'm telling you, white brothers have had the hookup, white sisters have had the hookup from the get-go. So it wouldn't be surprising to me that if Adele didn't understand that, didn't feel that, felt that, hey, it makes those people feel better, but I still earned what I got. That would be characteristic of most white people who are unwoke, who are unaware, who are unconscious of that privilege. And when they step up to me, as I said before, the greatest privilege a white person can have is to encounter a policeman on the street, and in the nasty fracas that might result from that, you live to tell the story about it. That is the ultimate form of white privilege, and it ain't got nothing to do with how much money you got, where your zip code is, or who your mom and daddy are.
We've been discussing this notion of privilege. We have Malcolm Gladwell up here. Do you think privilege is something only white people have?
Absolutely not. I mean, I have privilege, you have privilege as a male. Mm-hmm. Right? Because one of the untold stories is, look, not only is Beyoncé up against a legacy of inequity that is driven by white supremacy, she's up against male supremacy too. In fact, she's up against a legacy of male supremacy and misogyny expressed by black men. Black men who have participated in calling women bitches and hoes and skeezers and sluts and hood rats and chicken heads, who think of it as the expression of, my own ability to be liberated and emancipated to tell the truth about women. You unconscious, unwoke Negro. What you're doing is perpetuating a legacy of patriarchy, which is the belief that men's lives should determine the legitimate forms of social existence, misogyny, which is the hatred of women, or sexism, which is the belief that our inclinations as men should set the baseline for what we think is legitimate. We have practiced that too. Of course, we have male privilege. We have male privilege when it comes to black women, right? Black
they call
women
it double standards.
It is a tremendous double standard.
Right.
But black women have done more to protect black men than any other group in America, including black men. Black women have been on the cutting edge and on the front line, standing up for us, for Ida B. Wells, Nannie Helen Burroughs, Septima Clark, Joanne Robinson, Ella Baker, Angela Davis.
Your mama, your grandma,
your mama. But this is what black men do. Love my mama, right? So we got the vertical right, but the horizontal's jacked up. Hate my baby mama. Well, dude, your baby mama is somebody else's mama, your child's mama. So the adoration and reverence you have for your mother should be extended to your baby mother. Now, we know that there's tremendous tension, and we know it's back and forth. But the inability to recognize the fact that we have male privilege in a significant and serious fashion is a form of privilege. We got class privilege, too. If you got more money than the next person over here, you don't have the same experience of blackness as a person working on the line. And the person on the line doesn't have the same experience of blackness as the person who's homeless. So there are always gradations and degrees of difference. But of course we have privilege. We have privilege as Christians in a nation that demonizes Muslim people, right? We go around and we look, it ain't no problem if Tim Tebow takes a knee on the ground. It's a problem if one of the Muslim players, prayed 6 times, or in the middle of the field, all praise is due to Allah. That would be a problem. So the unconscious reproduction of privilege on multiple levels, one is religious, one is class, one is gender, and sexual orientation. Think about it. We live in a world, people say, well, I don't mind, gay people being gay, but why you got to do it in front of my face? Now, there's 1 million people out here kissing who are heterosexual. You ain't got no problem with. But you got a problem with a gay or lesbian, transgender, bisexual, queer person showing their affection. So, yeah, there's all kind of privilege that we have. And that's why I think under Trump, black people have to recognize we don't have the luxury or leisure to nurture in the bosom of our culture a bigotry towards somebody else. Like, I'm a preacher, too. I'm an ordained Baptist minister. I've been doing that for 37 years. I ain't been to no black church to turn down gay tithes. All this homophobia, but they ain't cutting off the dough. They ain't saying, excuse me, because of our beliefs theologically, we will not receive your dough. Hell no. They taking all that money from gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual, and queer people, and they ain't kicking them out the choir. I ain't seen no black church say, you cannot sing up in this choir, because it wouldn't be no good music. And quiet as it's kept, a lot of gay people are secretly gay preaching in the pulpit.
That's a fact.
Some of them are preaching homophobic sermons against gay people because they are secretly gay themselves, trying to forge connection with heterosexual people to deflect any suspicion of them themselves. So yeah, there are all kinds of privileges that operate simultaneously. You can be oppressed and an oppressor. Think about it. At the March on Washington, as great as that was, the women couldn't even come up on stage. And the only woman from the Big Six, basically was the Big Seven leadership, was Dorothy Height. What was her revenge? She outlived every one of them except John Lewis. So the reality is that even when we were being oppressed, black women couldn't even get recognition among their own men. But guess what happened? Martin Luther King Jr. was delivering his, as you know, famous I Have a Dream speech. Now, for everybody else, that would have been an A+ performance. For King, maybe C+. Why? Because he's reading. Because King was an extemporaneous preacher, right? And so he started off 50 years ago, well, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today, yes, signed the Emancipation Proclamation. He's reading. And then he goes on to say, the whirlwinds of revolt will shake the foundations of this nation until the Negroes granted his citizenship right. He talks about police brutality. But on the side of the stage, Mahalia Jackson, his favorite singer, one of the few women who could sing on stage that day, but only temporarily, from the side of the stage, shouted out to him, tell him about the dream, Martin. She could see you not hitting your preacher stride right there. So a black woman denied access to the center stage, nevertheless, from the margins, determines what happens at the center. That's what black women do. So Martin Luther King Jr. puts down the manuscript, and we all know the rest is history. Despite the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. And he went on and gave us an immortal elocution as a basis based on the fact that the black woman who couldn't even become equal with him, couldn't sit on stage with him, gave him marching orders from the side. So yeah, even when you are oppressed, you can be an oppressor at the same time.
I wanna Angela Rye was up here a couple of days ago, and we talked about banking black.
Right.
and I got a lot of flack for it. And I got a lot of flack because I like to ask questions. I don't care who owns what business. I would like to bank with my own, but I want to know everything. That's just like when I bank with Bank of America. I don't just put my money in. I want to know how much is there. And people, they call you coon and call you all different types of names when you want to know information about where your money's going, where your money's going on your stocks. So what do you think about banking black?
Well, first of all, Angela Rye, my daughter, my mentee, one of the most brilliant minds out there now, and a great cultural and social analyst and critic. I think she's absolutely right. I mean, Solange talked about that, right? Solange, got a lot of people involved in that as well. So
Killer Mike.
So when you got three prominent black people like Angela Rye, Killer Mike, and Solange talking about that, that's going to make a difference. And look, it's an old idea, right? The fact is that our money doesn't circulate much in our own communities. We know $1 in the black community is scarce. We get it, spend it, somebody else outside the community. Other ethnic and racial groups, let me hook up Charlamagne because he got a car detailing. Oh, okay. Let me go to Angela. Why? Because what she has is the ability to do nails and blah. So the point is they circulate that capital and that cash, and it begins to fund their ambitions, dreams, and desires.
Absolutely.
What the black people do, it exits quickly. Now, that don't mean that you can't ask the kind of question you're talking about. You still want to know what you're doing with my money. Just because I go to a black church don't mean I can't ask what you're doing with the cash, though, when we collect it. Right. How are you going to use it? At the first Million Man March, all respect to Minister Farrakhan. Some people were asking the question, what did we do with the dough that we collected? That's a legitimate question. Now, here's the problem, and here's what most black people do. Not most, many. So you get mad with one black person, they screw up, you just leave black people altogether. Right. There's another black person, and another black person, and another organization, and another bank. One white person doesn't exhaust the ability of whiteness to either help you or hurt you. You always give whiteness another chance, right? You always give that mainstream majority institution another chance. Black folk are so accustomed, once you step on my toe, once you do the wrong thing, once you show you ain't right, I just forget black people altogether.
That's why I
as
don't
opposed
bank in
to
no
others.
black bank, because at one time,
See what I'm saying?
Right.
Some Negro came in, but every day now, you taking the madness and the dominant culture, and you'll just go find another. I don't want no black sports agent because they can't give me no money. I want no black literary agent because they're not going to be able to generate as much cash. Right? So we don't trust each other. We still think the white man's water is wetter, and we don't give each other the chance. And what we don't recognize, right? I ain't going to name no names, like some famous athletes of my generation. Like, well, when black people prove that they can handle it. Dude, if you gave them your money and they had your capital and your name behind them, you could generate it. This is why, by the way, I love LeBron James. What did LeBron James do? Without pronouncing it, you ain't got to always have the commercial if you get the product. So LeBron James put in his boys from his neighborhood, educated, trained them, got them the access to the very careers they wanted. He put his guy in,
Rich Paul,
right? Maverick, highly educated, not Phil Jackson. Are they? And if I said Phil Knight earlier, I meant Phil Jackson. Not Phil Jackson, his posse, highly trained, skilled people who he put on as a result of knowing him, but that he invested in. So what did they end up doing? He put them in, let the white people train them, and then remove the white folk and let the black people run his stuff. LeBron James is doing not on paper, but in reality, what the rest of us should be practicing. And without announcing it, without making it a big deal, he engaged in some serious black banking. Why? I trust black people with my money. Now, they got to get trained, and they got to be informed, and they have to be at the top of their craft. And when they are, I'm going to help them achieve that. And when they get it, I'm going to invest my monies, my securities, my funds, my fiduciary responsibility with them. And so we don't have to turn hide. So, yes, I think you should ask as many questions as you ask anybody. Just because you bank black doesn't mean that you should accept some faulty premises for your own money. But what I will say is, if you're dealing with a black bank and they don't have the resources of a Bank of America, or a Mellon, and so on and so forth, we understand that in order to become that, we have to invest in that. Ain't nobody starting at the top, started at the bottom, now I'm here. Started at the bottom, my whole crew's here, right, or whoever. So the point is, you got to bring your crew with you. Right. You have to invest in a significant enough fashion so that those that we build up, we can now hold accountable. But they can't get there if we don't help them get there.
And the main thing with any bank is as long as it's FDIC insured, your money is insured.
I mean, come on.
$250,000.
Well, it's more than just $250,000. It's service. It's a whole lot of things. It's not just the $250,000.
I will say this.
I always say
One United has called me 5 or 6 times since I opened that account on Friday. And they're not calling me because I'm quote-unquote CHARLAMAGNE.
Right.
They just know my government.
Right.
They've just been showing exceptional service since I opened that account on Friday.
Now,
there it is.
Another thing we discuss, and I think a lot of our people do this a lot. They acquire money and don't know where to put it in the bank.
Right.
And like I told them the other day, I said I don't think I have more than $50,000 in an account because the bank is not making me any money.
Right.
0.000000 probably 3.
Right.
It's not making any money. So why do our people put money in the bank and expect to get a big return when there are other things that they should be looking for investments and to get more money on their return?
Well, that's a great point, but most people are not financially educated that way. Right. They don't have that kind of financial literacy.
So what would you tell people to do? Because I've always learned, precious stones is a good thing. Gold, silver, platinum.
Look at what you buy every day. Look at what you eating every day.
Right.
Look at what you riding every day. Right. If you're investing in it, somebody else is investing in it.
Right.
And then invest in that. Those stocks and bonds. Get you a financially literate advisor. Everybody needs an accountant. I don't care what level you're making $20,000 a year. And you got 2 kids to take care of. You need to have somebody who knows that industry, who can grow your dough. But for most black folk, again, this is the consequences of both an internalized sense of white supremacy, but also just lack of opportunity and what segregation did to us. So we thought, let's put it in the bank, because that's the financial institution we had. When the financial markets were regulated and segregated, we didn't have access to them. So what ended up happening, we saw the bank as savior, right? So we understand that, but now we got to tell black people there are a lot more instruments, financial instruments, that can be deployed to make us money that you can invest in long-term and short-term. If you want some long-term gain, you got to invest in one kind of stock and bond. And if you want some short-term, this is what you do. You put $20,000 over here, you put 15 over here, you put 10 over here, and save. You know what I'm saying? Pay yourself first. And then learn to save a certain percentage, is what my daddy told me. He said, the more money you make, the more you spend. So the thing is, if you learn to save proportionate to your income, if you tithe not only to God, but to yourself, the accumulation of that capital, and then get somebody to tell you where to put it. Absolutely. The reason all of these people in the Trump administration and Trump himself, and people who go into politics, do I have a blind trust? Why? Because they got dough. Because they got it, variegated. They got it, multiplied over space and time in different investments and instruments. So you're right. The bank is one of them, but the bank ain't the best way to make no dough. The bank ain't even the best way to keep your dough. The best way is to invest in things that will not be risky depending upon how much disposable income you got. If you got a higher degree of disposable income and you can play with that, then of course you can invest in more risky transactions that have a greater yield and payoff. But if you ain't got much dough, if your dough is slow, then deal with something that will give you a yield that is consistent over space and time.
My final question, Mr. Dyson, they hear us on this radio and they hear us talking all of this black stuff and pro-black stuff. Could you please let them know that don't mean we hate white people?
Not at all. I mean, isn't this what Tina Lawson, Tina Knowles Lawson said on her daughter's album, A Seat at the Table? She said, why is it that if I say I love black people, you think I hate white people? We don't hate white folk. In fact, an argument can be made. Black people love white people too much. Right? We love white people too much. We don't hate y'all. We love y'all. We want to be like y'all. We want to do our hair the same way you do. And I'm not saying, look, I'm not talking about black people with straight hair, because Africans did that. Africans experimented with their noses, their lips, put rings and hoops with their hair. I think that's an African thing, to experiment with your hair, to experiment with your body. That's a beautiful improvisational ethic at the heart of our own African-centered identity. But what I'm saying at the end of the day, that don't mean that we hate white people. We have learned to think white, write white, believe white, embrace whiteness as the norm. So it's not that we hate white, we love it too much. What we've got to do is to learn to love ourselves. And loving ourselves doesn't mean we hate you. It's not a zero-sum game. Look, if I like Shaniqua, don't mean I hate Becky. It means that Becky has been acknowledged. Becky with the good hair done got love from the birth, from the crib, from the cradle. But Shaniqua has been told that she's not beautiful. And the irony is, once we begin to embrace ourselves and you love yourself, you don't hate nobody.
Yes.
Because you're so secure in who you are. Mm-hmm. You know that what you represent is so powerful, so beautiful, so edifying, so uplifting, you ain't got to hate nobody else. So when you speak about black love and black self-love, that's the most revolutionary, radical thing in the world, is to love one's own self and to love one's own group. And I hope one day And you know, as much as I love hip-hop, and I be reading some of these tweets and young people be mad at me, I come on your show and spit in hip-hop. First of all, why you mad? Why you mad that an old Negro like me know your stuff? Because I'm going to challenge you to know my stuff. The reason I know your stuff and I can spit some Biggie and some Jay and some Nas and some Scarface is because I want to inspire my students. What do you know about W.E.B. Du Bois? Two warring ideals, two unreconciled strivings, whose dogged strength alone keeps it from being torn asunder. That's from 1903. Souls of Black folk.
And it's Du Bois, according to the education department.
That's right.
Of America.
Du Bois, you know what I'm saying? Du Bois and doing well. So the point is, you got to have an understanding of the culture. I don't know why young people get so mad. Do you think you own the culture? You don't own the culture. What? You don't possess the culture.
People say that?
Oh, they get mad at me like, stop all the quotations of hip-hop. I'm a kid. I thought I told you I wasn't going to stop. I thought I told you I wasn't going to stop.
And you grew up in the culture.
I mean, dude, I'm a hip-hop intellectual. Sorry. I got a PhD from Princeton, but I come from the streets of Detroit. I was a teen father. I had my son when I was 18 years old. We grew up listening to hip hop. We grew up listening. Look, I was the first person to introduce him to the fact that on wax, these men were going to use the word bitch, and I said, don't use it. So, and also listening to NWA. F the police coming straight from the underground. A young nigga got it bad because I'm brown and not the other color. So police think they have the authority to kill a minority. Why are you mad that I use hip-hop as a pedagogical tool to enlighten a young mind that is impressionable so that he can understand the difference between what is elevated, what is powerful, and what is beautiful, and what's whack? So my point is, at the end of the day, I want that culture to understand the beauty, the power, and the dignity of black female identity so that they can embrace that. So if we can love our own women, I ain't mad at you marrying no woman on earth. If you and this microphone could get down, I hope y'all success. You know what I'm saying? You look at it and say, you know what I like about you? What? You're black and you amplify me. All right, that's good.
Right. By the way, that's what black women do. By the way,
come on. I mean, in a very serious way. So let's learn to love our own. I ain't mad at no other woman in the world. Let me tell you what. I love all the women of the world. I'm 58 years old. Trust me when I tell you, I have had the opportunity to engage in the most elevated erotic reciprocity that is available to man. But at the end of the day, the woman from whose womb I have emerged, the black women who have been on this earth without recognition, without compensation, without the ability to be seen as equally worthy human beings as anybody else, should be embraced, should be elevated, should be loved. And I think when we learn to love those women and ourselves as black men and black children and black families, then we are at peace with ourselves, and therefore the rest of the world is no problem for us. But white brothers and sisters, don't get mad. You love your children. Mm-hmm. You love your particular tribes. You love the names you give them. We don't think that you hate us, but you are often indifferent to us. You are oblivious to us. We just don't matter. As the great ethicist said, the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. It's when I don't make a difference to you. You don't even care about me. As the old black people say, you ain't even studying me. So once we learn to love ourselves, all the pathologies that you think are out there, white America, that are in our community will be reduced. All of the suffering that you think we bear, the traumas that we impose, can be significantly assuaged or at least reduced or ameliorated, and it is made better. And another thing, I'm using them words because I want you to look them up. I'm using them words because I'm telling you, people in circles that you don't have access to, use them against you. And I want young black people to use these words, to know what a dictionary is, to know what a thesaurus is, to use those words, not to impress anybody, not to obscure knowledge, but because in circles you don't have access to in higher education and in government and in employment, they are using such terms to demonize you and put you into a box. Never be afraid of a word, challenge it, learn it every day. So I challenge y'all out there, learn a new word every day. Self-love means learning, means unapologetically embracing knowledge, means unapologetically embracing your own culture. White folk, we don't hate you. We love you just fine. But we got to learn to love ourselves even more. And you, who have benefited from the lack of black self-love, shouldn't be intimidated by finally the most revolutionary thing we do is to tell each other, I love you. That's the kind of love we got to have for our people.
Michael Eric Dyson's word of the day or T.I.'s word of the day. Either way, you learning a new word, okay?
There you go. Michael Eric Dyson, we appreciate you for joining us.
Always good to be on here. Thank y'all for having me on here.
All right, it's The Breakfast Club. Good morning.
The Breakfast Club. Every weekday morning. Tune in.